This is Steve Goldsmith, and we're continuing our stories about leadership, mayors, and innovation. And today I'm with Mayor Cicilline of Providence, who's got a national reputation for what he's done in his community for children. Mayor, let's start with how you chose the issue of children and after school as a priority for your community, especially when you didn't have total control over all the institutions affecting the children or the problem.
When I first ran for mayor, one thing that I heard over and over and over again from young people and from parents was their concern that there were not safe, enriching, worthwhile places for kids to be when they're not in school, and particularly after school. And I began to really look at this issue and saw the research that shows that, those hours from 3 to 6 are the most important hours for kids, that it's when most children are victims of a crime that occurs during those times. It's when most juvenile delinquency occurs. It's when most children are unsupervised. And even a child who goes to school every single day who has perfect attendance still spends most of his time out of school. And so I saw we were doing a lot of work in school in curriculum development and professional development of our teachers and reorganizing our high schools and a lot of work on what was happening in school. What we had ignored in Providence for decades was this out-of-school time resource. And if we could figure out how to use that in a way that supports the healthy development of our kids, I knew we could see real progress for our city and for the children of our city. And it really was about rethinking the way we think about our responsibility to kids. People think about, oh, we're responsible for kids when they're in school. Really, we're responsible for kids from the time they open their eyes in the morning to the time they go to bed at night. And we have to rethink our responsibility in a more comprehensive way, and using out-of-school time as a vehicle to begin to fulfill that responsibility I thought was really important.
So you established the priority and I assume talked to the city about it. How did you translate your vision to that being a citywide vision?
Well, when I got elected, actually before I was sworn in, but after I was elected, the Wallace Foundation, which is the Reader's Digest family, was looking for a city to begin an initiative called Learning in Communities to help a city design a high-quality after-school system, not to fund a program, but to really help a city develop a system. And so Providence competed with the Bronx, Pittsburgh, and Providence were the 3 finalists. They decided to start that initiative in only one city, and they came to Providence. And they said one of the reasons they came to Providence was because I talked about it in my inaugural address. So it was a really important commitment to me. We spent a little over a year and a half, almost a year and a half, in a very inclusive planning process with the community, with 100 stakeholders, developed a business plan, and the idea of it was really to divide the city into 5 what we call after zones. There are really 5 campuses, connecting a middle school, a public library, a city recreation center, a whole set of facilities and programs with a transportation system so that every child in the middle school, because that's where we began the initiative, belongs to an after zone. And so they go from 3 to 5 or 6 o'clock at night, from homework club to sailing to golf to dance to poetry to chemistry club, and a whole range of activities that are very high quality. There are clear quality standards that were established. They're really integrated with what's happening in the rest of the afternoon. There are now 2,000 kids, over 2,000 kids that are participating in the Providence After School Alliance free of charge in these kinds of programs that used to go home unsupervised, sitting in front of a TV or worse. So we have 5 after zones. They're all up and running, but it was really about bringing people together, then looking for funding from foundations and from the private sector and some public support to continue the program.
We've been looking a lot at collaborations and partnerships, and what you've just defined involves a lot of folks in your community. How did you decide who to invite to the table, and how did you convince them to cooperate or collaborate on this common issue?
It was easy to get them to the table because I said to them, it's my most important priority. Creating high-quality after-school programs and taking care of providing for the healthy development of the young people of our city was my highest priority. And as a new mayor, saying that this is my #1 priority, and sort of setting the expectation that everyone who's in the city who's working on youth issues needs to be part of this conversation. And then also having the ability to say, and if we work together and develop the right kind of system, we have the ability to really access new resources to bring new money to the city. I've raised almost $7 million from outside of Providence in new money that's now supporting the young people of our city. And so, that carrot obviously was important, but also making sure that people understood it was a priority for me. And every business, every hospital, every university understands that I expect everyone to play a role in supporting the young people of our city through the Providence After School Lines. Just a couple weeks ago, we had an issue where there was a ballet company in the city that had a loan, an economic development loan, that they couldn't repay to the city. And so I said, well, let's be creative. What about you'll provide ballet lessons, the value of those services through the Providence After School Lines until you work off the loan, so that we're supporting. So just thinking every time that we can about partnerships and innovative ways to support this, but letting people see that it's a priority of the mayor, a priority of the city. We did a lot of market research during the planning of this and listened very carefully to parents and young people about what they wanted in after-school programs and how important safety was. And now we have, police officers that are coaches on the Police Activities League that are at the after zones every day after school. And just recently a mother said to me, "Oh, Mayor, I've heard wonderful things about these after zones, and I really want to enroll my child, but I go by every day and I see a police car at that rec center," and she thought it was a bad thing. I said, "That's the coach," and so she was, "Oh my God," and she immediately signed her kid up. So it's really changing the culture of this in the city and changing the way people think about our collective responsibility to kids in our city, and the expectation that everyone will play a role: the police, the business community, the hospitals, the universities, the parents, providers, and everyone was very excited to be part of the planning process because they saw the real need in Providence.
Does schools report to you?
I appoint the school board and I appoint the superintendent. So yeah, I have, it's a strong mayor form of government, which I gave a presentation about PASA the other day, and I said, on the board of directors of PASA I chair the board, the police chief, my recreation director, the park superintendent. And people say, well, how do you get them to do that? And I realized, I said, well, it worked for me. So I realized that the form of government obviously facilitates this. It's not a prerequisite, but it makes it much easier to bring people to the table. But I wouldn't have a police chief or a rec director or a parks director that didn't enthusiastically support this concept anyway. But I think that form of government has made it easier.
I know, just one or two last questions. I know that you and your city have a reputation for performance measurement. How do you connect that initiative to the after-school initiative that you've been discussing?
We have ProvStat, which really measures outcomes and holds us accountable as a city government for outcomes. And I've established 5 goals for the administration, and we measure the appropriate indicators to accomplish each of those 5 goals. ProvStat is now working with the Providence After School Alliance so that we can measure outcomes of the initiative. We have a very sophisticated tracking software so that we know where kids are, when they're participating. We know when kids drop out of the program. We know how often they go. We've established very strong quality standards, and we've also, the Providence After School Alliance has also engaged a consultant to do a very comprehensive evaluation of the outcomes so that we know how it's impacting academic performance and school attendance and school behavior. The early signs are that it's having a positive impact on all those things. Kids are going to school more because you have to be in school to participate. Kids are having less behavioral problems. Their academics are improving. So we're going to really track that so we can make the case that the investment we've made and others have made in the Providence After School Alliance is producing these outcomes.
Well, last question. I know that many national groups, including America's Promise, have kind of held you up as an example of what communities should do. What suggestions would you have to other mayors, city leaders who want to copy the Providence success story?
Come to Providence and see the program. Call me or call the Providence After School Alliance, or go online and see mypasa.org and see the robust, wonderful program. But I think the most important thing to do is to make children and young people a priority in your city. I think mayors have to understand, and most do, that they have enormous power through their bully pulpit to say, this is a priority of our community. I'm going to make this a priority, and we need to come together as a community to meet these objectives. The voice of the mayor in that context can be very strong, and people shouldn't underestimate it.